Today is once again Monday, August 17th. Welcome to Big Book Daily. My name is Rob, and I'm still an alcoholic. That's my cat meows way over here. And the reason we're hopping back on again is because we have our speaker for the month, and his name is Chris K., who has been sober since 2009. So first of all, I want to thank Heather and Jan and everybody that was involved in organizing this particular meeting from the Get in the Car group, the Tennessee group. And talking about the testimony itself, the experience, strength, and hope that you're about to hear. Wow. There are so many moments in Chris's testimony that really make me think, wow, is that odd or is that God? You know, certain things that just line up that really make you wonder, man, maybe there's something to this whole higher power thing. But my friends, I hope you all enjoyed this one. This is a powerful one and a hilarious one too. I caught myself laughing and relating to a lot of what Chris had to say. And I hope you enjoy. And if we're given another set of 24 hours, I look forward to seeing you right back here tomorrow.
So we're very excited tonight. I don't know Chris, but I know his sister Melissa, and she's a lot of fun. So I am so excited to hear Chris K. from Newport Richey, Florida.
Hi everybody, my name is Chris, I'm alcoholic.
Hi Chris!
And my sobriety date is March 17th, 2009, and I'm a member of the Fourth Dimension group, but in Newport Richey, not the one around, whatever one's around here. Newport Richey, Florida, and I have a sponsor, and I sponsor a bunch of guys, and I'm so honored to be asked to come here, so thank you guys. You guys have been more than gracious. Everybody has been so sweet. I'm sure if I was here longer, I'd find out who I liked and didn't like, but I love you all right now. You guys have all been super, super sweet and nice to me. I don't know, I'm an only child. I'll just jump right into this thing. I know that the book is clear. It gives me some directions to share in a general way what my life was like, what happened, and what it's like now. There's another line in there that talks about how I formed a relationship with a God that I came to believe in. And that is, hopefully I'll cover all that in this next 2.5 hours I'll have you guys here. So, it's an honor to be asked to do this. So anyway, I'm an only child. I have these parents that are still married today. They just were wonderful examples of just hard work and just give their child whatever he wants. I could not stand them when I was a kid. I hated them, right? I hated that they would, I just hated them. They gave me everything, right? And I couldn't stand them. And I found out when I was a kid I was adopted, so I knew that was why. I was like, I just hate, can't stand these people. And I didn't know the backstory. They were trying to have a child for, a couple of years. And they finally get the call that, hey, you got a son here, you can come pick him up. And here we are, and then we're at court right after that. But so that deal though, they loved me to death. They gave me everything. Like when I was brought into that house, my grandparent, I just grew up in the ideal, I hear some stories around here and they're horrendous, and my childhood had nothing to do with why I'm alcoholic. Absolutely not. I was raised perfectly. My dad's alcoholic. He wound up getting sober in AA when I was a kid, but there was never drinking I remember drinking a little bit in the beginning of childhood, but never when I was wishing they would drink, never when I wanted to steal their beer or something, right? And I remember my parents cut grass. My dad had a lawn service, and I just hated it. I hated the grass was everywhere. My friends' parents were like bankers and realtors and maybe mortgage, originator. These are jobs I could sink my teeth in, right? And my parents cut grass, and they busted their tail. They gave me everything, and they raised me perfectly, but I just couldn't stand it. So none of this makes me alcoholic, but this is what I'm going around with. This is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I'm adopted. I'm thinking you're a piece of crap. I'm thinking your friends are better, just whatever. They had better cars, anything. I just could always line how I feel up with what you look like on the outside, always. I just always felt, I couldn't have told you this then. This is all like, if you're new, I know no one said they were brand new, but I didn't know this when I was going through it. I knew this looking back, like with the help of a sponsor and through this work we talk about here. But I had no words to put to this. I just felt uneasy. I did not like what was happening, although nothing was happening. I just was uncomfortable always. I grew up with the same group of kids, and if you saw a picture of us, you'd think those are three best friends right there. But in my mind, it was me and these guys. And it was just this big difference between us. So sometime around, 7th or 8th grade. Well, there was 2 times I drank prior to the magic really happening, right? And one time, we were riding bikes in this parking lot. And, it's a lot like this area right here where I grew up. And we were riding bikes. We were little kids riding bikes, and bumped into some weird old dude, and the kids I was with wanted him to buy them cigarettes, and we wind up in this guy's house drinking these really stiff screwdrivers, and yeah, right. I was in like 5th grade or something. It was disgusting. I couldn't get enough back to get enough in me to get an effect produced, right? And one other time I stumbled upon some warm Ice House in a can, which is equally disgusting when you're used to drinking Gatorade and stuff. But man, I tell you what, some people in here remember, I grew up in the 80s, came of age in the 90s. There was a thing called Zima out then, right? And had I known that I was going to be telling a group of strangers at an AA meeting that my first drink that really did it for me was Zima, I promise you, it would have been a different drink. But man, I remember my buddy Dave, we were at Dave, his mom was like a real estate appraiser, and they had a nice house, and we were in this back room, and Joe, all these people had siblings. I'm an only child. I'm different. I'm all this stuff walking into this night, and Joe's older sister got us some Zima, and I remember drinking these things, and immediately, I didn't care. I don't care that, what my parents do. I don't care that I'm alone here. I didn't care about anything. I don't know that I grew any or anything like that, but I just felt okay. For the first time, I was just like, you know what? Screw it if they don't like me, and with that attitude, my jokes were landing, everything was just flowing that night, It was like there was this person inside me that I just wanted so bad to show you guys, right? I just was so full of fear. I was blocked off. I couldn't pull it out. And that night it came out, man. I remember leaning on going in the bathroom and looking in the mirror and being like, hell yeah. I just remember everything was just good. It was like, I'm doing this. This is it. I didn't do sports really growing up or anything. I was like, I can get behind this. This is something I could do this, So I tried, man. I didn't, I can't drink every day. I'm 7th or 8th grade or whatever, maybe going into high school, but I start so now everything's out the way. I wasn't a big heading to college kind of guy. I had no real things on the horizon anyway, but if I did, they were sidelined. I did not care about anything except where are we partying on Friday? My high school class is very big. There were several thousand kids in my high school, and someone's parents were always out of town. And at this time, there was a lot of cow fields and woods by my house, and we would hang out in the woods, or we would hang out at somebody's house whose parents were gone, and that's how I went through high school. And I immediately fell in with a group of guys that, everybody I was hanging out with was doing exactly this. So you could not have told me that this drinking was abnormal. You couldn't have told me, hey, you're going to be in Tennessee one Friday night at an AA meeting, you just never could have convinced me that this, my dad's an alcoholic. He's gone to those AA meetings. I'm never going to be like him. He's dumb, I am smart. I'm different, right? And it kind of took right off in that direction. And So I don't know, not much happened there. I wind up getting barely squeaking by and graduating, and now I'm kind of a man now, Now I'm drinking on a fake ID at this Regency pub, it's called, It's terrible. It's like a third of this room, if that, is low, crappy seal. It's just a dive bar in a strip mall. Like we have a lot of strip malls in Florida, right? It's in this little strip center. It says bar, right? That's how you know. That's where I like to drink, right? But they would take this fake ID, and we got good at making these fake IDs. It was when Florida first came out with the card one. It was hard, and my buddy figured it out, man. And now we got this other thing going on. Now we are the guys that can get the fake ID, So like when Bill talks about I had arrived, I get that on so many levels, right? Because I'm now a part of life. It feels like now I'm in with these guys that I like looked up to, and like if you just went to JDC jail, I don't know what they call it here, kid jail. We need to talk, Like I was attracted to that. My parents were like, stay away from those people. I'd go right to them, That was just my MO always. And we're drinking at the Regency pub. Claire is our bartender. She's like so wise. She knew, like, she was like an older lady, She was like 27 or something. She was just like, and I would just lean on that, like, they had that fake wood. It's like this, exactly like this, and with a foam pad, and I'd just lean on that baby and just let her tell me things about life, and like I just loved it. And if my drinking would have stayed like that, and that was it. So now in the midst of all that, I'm missing work every day. I owe everybody money. My parents are mad at me. Name it. I can't get off probation. I got all this stuff going on. But when I get to the Regency pub, it's all good. And if it would have stayed like that, I promise you would have a different speaker tonight. I wouldn't be here. Because that thing was still doing something for me. It was still doing it to me. It was still doing it for me. It was still working. It was ugly on the outside. My family wanted me to stop drinking even back then. I had been introduced to AA by that time. But you could not have convinced me that there was something wrong with the way I was living. And I loved it. It was still shutting my head off. It was still doing something for me. So it progresses like it does. They're not lying when they say it. When I first got here and heard that, I was like, I don't know if I buy into that really, but it absolutely was progressing, with or without my permission. It was just kind of marching along. And so now the things I am, willing to do to stay drunk and stay loaded. I have the utmost respect for Alcoholics Anonymous. I got a bunch of other stuff in my story, and it let me drink a lot longer, but it also helped me get a lot more charges, right? I have a bad criminal record because of all this stuff that's illegal, but it would always wind me back up in AA, right? I would always wind up in a treatment center. I would always wind up before a judge, and I would always wind up back in these rooms somehow. And man, it just seemed like when I would sober up, I would be a day sober, and I might even be happy for the first day, I'm glad I'm off this stuff, I'm feeling better, everything. And I'm at my parents' house because I have nowhere to go because I'm a loser by this time, right? I've lost the apartment, I lost all this stuff, and, my mom might come home and ask me one of those, like, just questions like, what do you want for dinner? And I'd be like, would you leave me be, could you get off of my back? And see, I don't know what I'm suffering from at this time is really, alcoholism shows up when I put this drink down, and I don't realize that. I don't realize that my head gets so loud, that my spirit gets so restless. Like, I just come unglued, and I can't even tell you that. I don't even know that to tell you, right? And I had been in these, I'd been in a treatment center where we read the doctor's opinion all the time and stuff, but I just couldn't see it until I could see it. I did not hear that message. And I know it was being said there. There was nothing wrong with where I was at. So I can't seem to get out of trouble. I'll fast forward the next 10 years of my life. There's a lot of hilarious stories. There's a lot of tragic stories. There was, I'm basically blackout drinking every single day. I'm drinking to oblivion every day toward the end. I'm living in a car. I mean, I miss my grandfather's funeral when I'm out there. Like I'm doing these things that you could have never convinced me that your life is going to turn out like this. I am hanging out with people that I never, ever would have seen myself with in places that I would never go to, never in a million years. And I'm right in the middle. I'm showing them things, right? I'm in the middle of that lifestyle. And so that's kind of where I'm at leading up to the end here, right? There's a whole lot of one more attempt and one more failure, because I try to sober up with the help from different judges and that kind of stuff. I might even go to a treatment center, and then before I know it, my mind just starts wearing on me until it's time to drink again. And I around this time, I got kicked out of, I got into a court-ordered treatment. It was like supposed to be a 6-month program, and I didn't make it. They kicked me out, and I'm on this violation. This is like it's not a fancy, there was no like swimming pool or anything. This was a state-run place that you go to if you don't want to go to jail. Or not if you don't want, if they give you a chance, you go to. And I get kicked out of there, so now I'm on this violation. And if your story has no jail or anything, that doesn't make me alcoholic, but that made me, this is where this thing took me. So please try to identify. If I get a lot of, it's not everybody's story, but so I wind up in this place. I wind up getting kicked out of that place, and I'm running around now. Now, I get picked up on this violation, and I do 9 months in the county jail. When I got out, like they give you your clothes back, my clothes didn't even fit, right? Because when I go into a place like that, I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping, I'm up for days, I'm drinking, I'm doing all kind of crazy things. And like I said, this was just like Tuesday. This was like a normal deal, right? So I got all that going on, and I get released. And I think it's going to be different this time, right? And I had been exposed to AA. I knew that drinking was but a symptom. It always makes me thirsty when I sit out there and someone drinks something, so bear with me. But anyhow, I knew that drinking was not, the alcohol wasn't the trouble per se. I knew that there was something bigger going on. I understood all that at some kind of level, but I could not stop drinking. And I get out of there, and I go to my parents' house, where any, self-respecting 25-year-old with no place to go goes, and they give me one more chance, man. They say, absolutely, come home, please. I think I went into my bed as a teenager, and I'm using their house at this time. See, by this time, my mom started going to Al-Anon, which I don't know if you guys have that in Tennessee, but God, if you're still drinking, if you're not done drinking, that Al-Anon will ruin the people that love you, right, is what happened. My mom starts kicking me out, basically, or locking the door, right, which is equally as bad, saying, she said, we're going to treat this like a store. Certain hours you can't go to just show up at a store, right? So if you want to come here, if I'm awake, you can come in. If I'm asleep, it'll be the next day. And if you're all whacked out on, everything else, and if you're drunk and you come here, you can't come in. I was like, all right, fair, I felt a little like betrayed, kind of. I'm like, whatever. But I couldn't pull it off. I couldn't show up there sober. But I'm using this house like, by this time, I'm like basically living out of a backpack, essentially living on people's couches, and I have like some clean clothes at their house. I'll check in there, take a shower, grab a shirt, go back out for, another week, come back, do this game again. And eventually they're like, you're not doing this here. So I don't know what you guys do when that happens. I get into a fight with my dad because it seems like the reasonable thing, and I leave their house, right? And I don't know what it's like. I have kids now. I can't imagine what it's like for my dad to kick his only child, his son that he loves. I don't know what that's like to kick me out of his house and to say, you can't be here anymore. You're freaking your mom out. Get the hell out of here. I don't know what that's like, right? I imagine it's heartbreaking. But that's what's going on. And I leave their house, and I wind up at this house where this guy's mother had just passed away, and like the probate or whatever wherever the house was like in limbo, and all these guys that were running around with us at this time had heard of this. So this is now the new safe space. You know, this is the first safe space. Actually, this was where we all went, right? This was like home base. Everybody's hanging out. Everybody's out of their mind. There's people coming, going. We're stealing power. We're stealing water. We're nuts, right? Just up all the time, drinking, craziness. And I get kicked out of there, right? Because even now my drinking is like, hey, you got to leave here, right? So I get kicked out of this place. And for whatever reason, they called me back. They called me back and they said that I had gotten some mail there. And see, I don't know. This is like God already working in my life. Now, by this time, I'm so far removed from anything good. There was a big book study that met literally like to the parking lot from where I was at. And my dad, when I'm doing terrible, my mom goes to Al-Anon, my dad goes to AA, right? He hasn't had a drink, but he needs something spiritual when his son is going crazy. And he'd pull into that. I was doing a yard sale at this guy's house. I was selling all this guy's like mom's earthly possessions and stuff, which sounds insane. I made amends for that. I've met with him and he was sober in AA for a while, but in any event, I'm having a yard sale in front of just to get any money so I can keep getting loaded. And my dad pulls up and he tries getting me to go to this meeting with him. He says, come on, man, this 10 a.m. There's a great big book study, which I later got sober in, but he's like, there's a great meeting right here. Come to this meeting. And I couldn't do it. I could not get in that truck and go with them. And so those guys kicked me out of there. And now I'm just kind of aimlessly walking around this part of my town, the town that I still live in. And they called me and said that I had received some mail there. And I went back there. Now, these guys could have been trying to kill me, honestly, for the shenanigans I was pulling, and they didn't. They had some mail for me. At the time, it was like a winning lottery ticket for that. It was my food stamp card, right? This, if you're living the way I'm living, this is now $100 or whatever. This is money for the next, hour or so. And I go back over there to get this, and that's like the beginning of the end for me. I got, I don't know if I haven't seen a 7-Eleven, but we have 7-Elevens, right? It's a convenience store. And every now and again, if you find the right clerk at that 7-Eleven, you can press hot food, which if you're in the food stamp game, you cannot get hot food pressed, right? You have to learn this when you're in this life, right? Someone in here understands what I'm talking about. But I could get my Cuban sandwich, my Cubanito pressed from this one lady, right? So this is my meal for the week. I have my golden ticket. I'm about to go start having a good night, and I get my Cuban sandwich, and I'm trying to cross this road in front of this guy. And, the rest is I found out in a it's got to be a lawyer or something here, but in a discovery. Someone knows what a discovery is, right? It's when you get arrested, all the facts of the case wind up in this thing called a discovery. I didn't know that then, right? But I'm kind of in this blackout phase. This is the middle of the day. This is a main road like we came in on here. This is like 3 lanes each way. This is a Tuesday. My sobriety day is March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. Everyone's like, oh, how do you get sober on St. Patrick's Day? Well, you get arrested on the 16th is how you get a sober date of the 17th, right? So on the 16th, on that day, I tried opening up some guy's car door. And I have no idea what I'm doing with this guy once he didn't come out of the car, but I opened his door. That's a burglary. I put my hands on him. That's a battery. That's a burglary battery in the state of Florida, and that's a big deal. That's punishable by life if they choose to enhance it that way, right? If the right prosecutor wants to do, rightfully so, what he should do, because there's whacked out idiots like me walking around trying to take, sober guys out of cars, right? And so I think my life is absolutely over. I'm at one of these things, not for this purpose, right? But I'm getting charges read to me. I'm getting that burglary battery charge and this drunken and disorderly and all these other possession charges and all this stuff read to me at one of these podiums on a video screen. And I remember there was really like some kind of piece of I don't want to say that I was excited to be heading into jail, but there was a bit of all right, maybe the madness is over for a bit, right? Because even the time before when I had just done the 9 months, like I wasn't sober per se. I was dry in there, but I was like feeling a little better. I might have done a push-up or two. I was eating a little. I was okay. I had, ended up getting a little routine. So I was kind of like, all right, maybe this madness can stop. Maybe I can get a break from this. Because every time I would try sobering up to this, I would remember, man, you missed your grandfather's funeral, you loser. Like, what are you even doing? You got a day now? What are you going to, this is what my mind would say to me. Like, just restart tomorrow. What the hell are you even doing anyway? And I would just have this dialogue going in my head until it was time to get loaded. And I would drink until I couldn't stand it anymore. And I would stay sober until I could not stand being sober anymore. And I was just stuck in this thing. So now I'm kind of relieved. I'm heading into the county jail. Now, some months prior, maybe a year or so prior, I had met this guy in there, and he's in there, right? Same kind of people, same dorm, same everything. I saw him on the street when I was out there. I had seen him on the street, and now we're back in there. And we both had these charges. He had actually 2 of those. I had this one burglary battery, he had 2, and we're like, dude, we're screwed. Like, I felt like when Carl Jung's talking to Roland, I felt like the gates of hell had closed on. Like, I really felt like defeated for whatever first time. I always have. I don't know if there's anybody in here. Plan B, kind of, if that don't work, I'll go over here. Screw that job anyway. I'll go over here. I always have something on the horizon in my mind anyway. I really feel like I'm going to get it together. And this time I had nothing going on. So we wind up sitting in there, and it's hard to get. The county where I'm in, I don't know, I think they do tablets now even. I don't know how they get mail in there, but at that time, you could not get mail in there. It was a postcard. That was it. And somehow my mom is getting the grapevine sent in. Our meeting in print, if you're familiar, right? And she's getting the grapevine sent in, and I'm reading the big book with this guy, and he's telling me about other spiritual stuff, and we're kind of sitting there doing this thing, just messy, ugly, we're not doing anything right, but we're trying to do it. We're just like heading in that direction instead of the the other direction, whichever way I would always do before. And we read this article. See, I'm here tonight because a man turned himself into a jail on an amend. That's why I'm here tonight. That's why I'm sober. There's no doubt in my mind, right? That is exactly what happened. One of those amends that you look back at that list and you're like, I'll never, I don't know if your sponsor has you making columns and that, that's like on the never column, that kind of thing. That's why I'm here tonight. But I don't know that at the time. I'm sitting in this county jail reading these grapevines, and I'm reading this deal, and the gist of this article that me and my buddy Eric, who I had met in there, are reading is, the title of it was Someone to Help. Now, the backstory on it, this guy he was in upstate New York. He was working with this sponsor named Scott that we were talking about earlier. And this guy, Scott, said, how long are you going to run from Florida? He didn't say it to me. He said to the guy that wrote this article, he said, how long are you going to run from Florida? You owe Florida time. You're never going to stay. So every time a cop gets behind you, how long are you going to run from that? You got to go deal with this. And he was at that part of his step work, and he turned himself into Florida. And they kept him, right? So he called Scott. He's like, what's the deal? I thought I was going to get like a letter or something saying, great job in AA. And they said, what he said was, maybe there's someone in there you need to help. I don't know why God, why this power's doing this. I have no idea. So I have no idea about that. I read this article. Now, when I read the grapevine, I look at the pictures of the meeting rooms. I like that portion. And then this is how I do it. You don't have to do it this way. I read the state, right? And if I like your state, I'll read your article, right? And then I go back and I might read more when I'm through with that one. But this guy happened to be from Perry, Florida, right? Which is up in the Panhandle. It's like in the middle of nowhere in Florida. Now, he was in the institution. This was the institutional grapevine, right? So the guy, Eric, that I'm in the cell with says, oh, Perry, Florida, man, that place is terrible. Because, see, he had been to prison. I had never been to prison yet. And he says, that place is terrible. Sand gnats, and it's just terrible, man. You're going to hate it. Perry's terrible, right? So Fast forward, I wind up on this prison bus pulling up, and they don't like tell you where you're going. They give you a few options or something. I wind up in Perry, Florida, right? I'm at this Taylor Institutional pulling up to this prison, and I'm not, the guy in the grapevine is the furthest thing from my mind, I promise you. I'm not thinking about any of that. I'm like, all right, we're not going to die today. We're not looking at anybody. We're not talking to anybody. We're going to go in here. And I'm in there for a few weeks. And they had Catholic services coming in. So I'm sold out on this AA thing by now. I'm in. And I know that I've never done your steps. I know that I've never done a fifth step. I know, like, I'm standing here. I'm a liar. I come here and I don't do anything. I steal a chair and, I laugh at the speaker or whatever, but I don't do any of your steps. And for whatever reason, I'm reading the big book, and I say to this Father Bernie was his name, right? And I said, hey, I'm a member of AA. Thank you very much, and I'd like to do a fifth step with you. And he said, all right, we'll arrange, and next month we'll, get you out here early or whatever. I would go up to this little chapel. So in the time from then, like, honestly, it was like a few days later, I see this guy in my dorm, this angel, this dude that God sent me, this person, this guy wearing the same uniform as me, this guy who, I don't know it, but he's the guy that wrote that damn grapevine, right? And he's in my dorm. He's like from me to the door. He's in there. And I see him with some big books and some grapevines. And we start talking. Now, there's a line in the fifth step in the big book that talks about the reason we do this with an understanding person is he's not going to change what we're driving at. Okay? Now, I have nothing against the Catholic faith at all. I was raised that way. But I also know that after I do a confession, a lot of times they just say, well, say a Hail Mary. You don't have to make any amends or anything. Say a prayer and you're all good with us. This sponsor wasn't going to let me off the hook like that, right? He was going to have me making these amends. And so I open up to the universe. Hey, I want to do this thing. God presents this dude right in my dorm, just like that. Right on time, exactly on time. He's always been right on time with whatever I have going on, and I don't know it when I'm in the middle of it. And we start walking the rec yard and start talking to this guy, and I realized in that talking, I just saw this guy with a big book. This is an institution with no AA meetings, right? There's literature, but there's no outside meetings. It's in the middle of nowhere. And I realized as we're walking this rec yard that this guy is in fact the guy that wrote that article. And I was like, dude, I need to do a fifth step. I have this inventory written. I've been in treatment 20 times. I've written, and he helped me. We changed some things, but I did an inventory with this guy. Excuse me. And the way it started was on a rec yard. It was like afternoon rec. It was after lunch. It was like the springtime. I remember it was like sunny. It was a little hot. It was still nice out in Florida, but it was sunny. And we're this close to people, like closer. People you wouldn't tell anything to, let alone this kind of stuff, right? We're this close to everybody. And the way this guy started this fifth step is by telling me things that I didn't write down, but I had in my head that I was not going to say, right? It's all those things, and I had them. And he starts this thing out by telling me these things. And I'm in. I'm like, this dude is for real. And I said, I said, me too. I did this, check this out, here's this. And for whatever reason, I told this guy my entire life story, like it says, right? And that wasn't the whole, there was more to be done, but I put it all out there for this guy. And I remember they closed the rec yard and you go back and you sit on your bunk while they count the entire compound or whatever. And I remember sitting there looking out a window and just being like, you know what? I think this thing will work. Like I didn't even know what that emotion was, but I had hope for the very first time. I couldn't even have told you that, but that's like, I was like, I think this thing might really work for me. And I had never felt that way when I sat in a clubhouse, and nothing against clubhouse AA or anything, but I would come to these meetings and I never felt that because I had never been doing what you guys were doing. And of course I'm not going to feel like that, right? So, that guy got out. Right after that, he only came through he was end of sentence. My dorm was kind of like a transient type dorm. He was just coming through there for this little space in time, this little bit of time right when I was in there. And he came through there and he left. And this was 2010. I was like, I'm never going to see this guy again, whatever. And I got out right after that, like several months later. And that year, what am I saying? The international convention was in San Antonio. And we drive there, and I'm broke, and the guy I drove with is broke, and the guy that convinced us to go was like, oh, I'm not going last minute. You know how these AA, this is like my grand sponsor. He's like, every time they would talk about the Lord's Prayer, you guys have seen this, right? It started, it's like 30,000 people are going to be holding hands, you know, and then the next night, it's like at least 40,000 people are going to be, you know, each night it builds with more people are going to be holding hands, saying the Lord's Prayer, right? But we were in. I was amped up. I was excited. We drive out there. And the first person, we drive 18 hours from Florida to way down into San Antonio. And the very first person we see is the guy from upstate New York that wrote The Grapevine. And I was like blown away. I was hitting the dude I'm with. I'm like, dude, that's the guy Dirk that freaking saved my life, man. And it was just like a little nudge from this God, like, hey, look, I just orchestrated all this. Like, check it out. Look what, you know, it was just like, and I was coming to believe. I did not realize that, like, I did. I was floored by that, but I didn't realize that's what was going on. It was just like, dude, look what I'm doing here. So I always forget to say this. I wrote a response back to that, to the Grapevine. You know, I'll get on with my story, but some years later, I wrote a response back, and they published it, right? So then now, I remember, this was years ago now, but I was almost embarrassed that I did it. And my mom was like, you might have thought I, like, did a Nobel Peace Prize or something. Like, this is as good as it gets. She's got her Al-Anon sponsees over, you know, and it's like the ODAT or whatever they read, and then my Grapevine out on the freaking coffee table there. But anyhow, so I get out, and like life is good, man, and I wind up at a meeting with Melissa that frequents this group and this meeting and this circle here. I wind up at a meeting where she's the main speaker, and this other girl there was two speakers, and they were both the speakers. They're sisters, and the other is my wife now, you know, and it was perfect because they're like an hour from me at the time, right? They were in St. Pete. It's about an hour away from Newport Richey. I don't know how you guys' relationships go in AA or outside of AA really, but mine are, we get together, we move in together like maybe a day later, you know, and then we spend the next, 10 or so years just looking for a way to either kill each other or get a restraining order, you know, so some amicable way to end this thing, right? But this is not how this worked out, right? It was really sweet. It was divine, man. It was like we would only be able to see each other every so often, you know, and it took its time, and we're married together now. I should probably know this better than I know all these other dates in my life, but I think we're approaching 14 years. Edit that off the tape, please. But we've got these two kids. We, neither of us had kids. Neither of us had plans of having kids. And I really think that's kind of like what not one of the great events, but like when you talk about like your life beyond your wildest dreams, like I wouldn't have wanted kids. I didn't want kids in like some stable home or so. That just didn't even sound... You know, I want like a yacht and a stripper and a truck or something. Like that's that's what I think I need. And, today I got a 13-year-old girl and an 11-year-old girl, and they are just like the joy of my life. They've never had to see me. They never had to come visit me at that institution. They never had to come bring me socks to detox, or they never, they know everything about you guys. They love you guys. You guys they're my weird friends, and you guys, they come to our anniversaries, and they know all of us, and you guys are in our life, right? This is a family deal at my house. There's AA stuff all over my house, and so I don't know, here, I'll spend the rest of this time here, I guess. Life got amazing and still is amazing. It really is. It can absolutely have, there are certain trials and low spots coming if you're here for any time. And it was explained to me that if you haven't experienced one, then you might be on your way to one, right? Because I had this delusion that when I got sober, I was going to be rendered problem-free. But that was, no more problems. We're sober now, and that wasn't the case. This first guy, not the guy Dirk from prison, but this other guy, when I got out, there was this guy that approached me at this clubhouse. I was homeless, and to stay at my parents' house, I had to go to this meeting. And this guy came, and I went to that meeting, and he came and introduced himself to me. And that was it. It was nothing major. It was no, let me show you this in the book. Like, he was just nice to me. And I knew that I wanted to get back with this guy when I was trying to get sober again. And I got out, and he became my sponsor for like 7 years. And in that 7 years, that guy taught me everything about Alcoholics Anonymous and how to be a good AA member and how to be a good home group member and everything. And then he started slowly, like toward the last couple of years of him sponsoring me, he was just kind of easing back out of this. Life had gotten so good for him that he just wasn't around like he was. Enough to that point where I was almost like, before he had drank, which he ended up drinking, obviously, before he had drank, I was almost like, I'm kind of doing more than Wes right now. Like, I got to find somebody. Like, my sponsor today is almost, I think, 81 years old. He's 53 years sober, and he does more than me. This guy is somebody I look up to. The guy is just on fire and happy all the time. But at the time, this guy Wes was just kind of backing out of this deal. And he floundered around with this thing for a little while. And this is a big book guy. This is a step guy. This is a guy that is like all about this process and this work. And we're getting you right in the steps right away. And then he would come back and he would be like, "Nah, I think I'm going to wait. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to get that guy that we never see, that nobody knows. I'm going to get him to sponsor me." Like, it was just like a different person. And it was heartbreaking watching what this guy was talking about. And he was like, "No, I'm going to try this medicine instead of coming here all the time and doing this work." And he was on this whole other, it was a different person. And for 7 years, I watched that. And he came back after 7 years. So 7 years in, 7 years out. And then he's doing the deal for a year. And in that year, he was like, at the beginning of that year, he was like, "I never had it in me to ask you to sponsor me, and I want you to I want what you have," he said. And I was like floored. I was honored. I was like, "Dude, I would love to do for you what you did for me." And I start sponsoring this guy, and we start going through the book exactly like he taught me how to go through the book. And we just start doing this deal and doing it together and going in all these halfway houses and doing all the stuff that he taught me. And he missed the home group. My home group meets on a Friday night, and he missed the home group one night. And I got a call early Saturday morning from his wife, and I knew that was not good. I was like, as soon as I knew it wasn't good that he missed, and I knew it wasn't good when I seen her calling at 7 a.m. or whatever. And he had overdosed the night before. And I was just like, man, I remember my wife was out doing something, and my kids, like, we were all just laying in bed and goofing around. And I read this text, and my kids were like, "Are you crying right now?" And it was like the first time that they had ever seen. Like, I was like, "Yeah, I think I am actually." Like, I didn't even know. I was just totally overwhelmed with what was going on. And it was one of the hardest things I did was walk this guy. His family came. We did this celebration of life. And we did it at the group, at where my meeting not my meeting, where my home group meets, where this group meets. And that room was packed. And it was just one after another of guys going up to that podium and talking about, well, if Wes didn't do this, then this guy wouldn't have heard this, then I wouldn't have got this message. And it was just this chain reaction. And we got to just flood this dude's family, his sister, his dad. We got to send him off like that. And it was one of the hardest things I had ever done sober. It really was. But he's still teaching me things today. That guy is still, things he said still resonate with me when he was in his right mind saying them to me, and the way he was living at the end still does the same. It's still teaching lessons. I'll just shut up with this amends story I want to share with you. So that guy Wes, when he was sponsoring me, when I was newly sober, I had no kids at the time, and I stole an iPod, which dates the story, but I stole an iPod from my best friend, from my buddy that I've known for 40 years. We went to kindergarten together or whatever. I stole this iPod from him, and it was not a big deal to him. He did not care, but it was a big deal to me. It bothered me. It weighed on me. Excuse me, and I tell Wes, I'm like, dude, he does not care about this thing. He gets weird when I talk to him about it. He does not want money. He does not care. And he's like, well, because the guy Chris, that's his name also, he had just had a kid. So Aiden is his son. He's 17. I'm 17. When his wife went to have that child, I pawned the iPod, right? And I got sober like a week later because I got arrested and lost the pawn ticket and blah, blah, blah. So time frame here, Aiden is as old as I am sober, right? So he said, you said he had a kid, don't you? You said he had a kid, didn't you? Why don't you do something nice for his kid? He said, people like that. He didn't, I don't even know how Wes knew this because he had no kids, right? And I had no kids. And he said, people like that. As long as you're not creepy, when you do stuff, nice stuff for people's kids, that's nice, right? So we start going, we go to this, we're at the kid's birthday, right? He's 3 or 4 at the time. I don't know the kid. I don't know how to interact with kids. He's hanging out with his friends. He doesn't care about this weirdo that he's never met that's, making amends to dad or so, he has no idea. He doesn't care about that. But I'm there, see, and that's what my mind is telling me because I feel weird because I'm around I know his sister my whole life and both of his sisters. They knew me in that life. They are looking at me weird. Like, we heard you went to prison. Like, it was just a weird vibe going on. And that's what my mind is telling me, like, get the hell out of here. You don't need to do all, like, you don't need to be here. Like, this is stupid. Olin doesn't, Chris doesn't care. This is stupid. And I didn't listen to it. I let my what do they say? Like my sponsor's voice was louder than the voice in my head for whatever reason that day. And I stuck and stayed, and I'm there, and I'm talking to his dad, and I'm talking to his family. And there came a time not long after that he got himself into some trouble. And the only people they knew to call, because my wife was there and myself, was us two. Not because we're some, stellar AA. We're the only 2 sober people they knew to call when they got their kids taken, when they got that boy taken out of their life, right? So my wife started sponsoring his wife, and I started trying to help him. And we went about this thing. And right around a couple years into that deal, we're hanging out. Things are great. They got their 2 kids back. They got a sober kid. Life's happening. We just find out that his dad just drops dead one day. June 10th, actually, AA's birthday. But it was hot that day. And I remember, his dad was, about to retire. He was a brick mason his entire life. He was giving him the business, and he, just had a heart attack and dropped dead one day. And I called him and I was like, hey, how's your dad? Because we thought he had a heat stroke or something. We were messing with him because old man can't take it kind of thing, And he was in tears, man. He's like, no, dude, he didn't make it. He died in the ambulance. And we were floored by it. We couldn't believe it. Now my wife's little alcoholic head, spidey sense started to wake up, right? Now she says, we don't know your family history. I'm adopted, right? I'm cool with it at this time. I don't care about being adopted. I don't care. I'm through the steps. I'm helping guys. I'm cool with it. That's so I don't even care about it. I don't even think about it. But my wife does, apparently, right? She's afraid we have no idea about my health, about my family, anything like that. So I do this, I appease her. I say, yes, I'll take your, 23andMe or whatever. And I match. So Chris Kelly is my name, but I don't know if I'm Irish, and I'm sober on St. Patty's Day, and everyone's always like, Chris Kelly sober on St. Patty's Day, and I'm in my mind, I'm like, I don't know if I am, right? I have no idea, right? So I get this thing back, and I'm 99% Irish. My entire family, outside of a few cousins that live in San Francisco, everybody lives currently in Ireland. All of them, the entire family. this one little Achill, this weird, western part of Ireland, this little tiny island. And I was like, that's weird, right? So I matched with this cousin and we're chatting, and she's like, oh, you should put your info on this thing on Facebook. It's called Search Angel. She's like, put it on Search Angel. I'm like, all right, what is it? What's the deal? And she's like, oh, well, they help find family members. And I'm like, all right, I'll try it. So I put this info in there. And like a day later, this lady matches with me, she said she would agree to help me. And this is just like a volunteer. Like, this is her thing. Like, we do this, we help people. So if you need to locate anybody, this is a side note. She has found sponsees, family members right before they pass. Like, she finds people. Side note, I'll give you her info. She knows I'm in AA, and she knows I share her info if you want to locate anybody. However, this lady, I give her my info, and 2 days later, she gives me I get this email. I can remember where I was driving. I get this long text and these pictures. She's like, this is your mother's immigration papers. She was born in Ireland. This is her office. She lives in Fort Lauderdale. Here's her home address. She just like federal type, like the real deal background. Like, she just had everything. She's like, I know. She was like my adoption sponsor. She's like, process this, She's like, deal with it a little. She's like, pray on it. She was a spiritual woman, and she is a spiritual woman. She's like, pray on it. Talk to me about it. If you want to contact her, I'll tell you the best way that we can try to do this. And a few days later, I did all that, and I was like, I think I want to try, right? So I get this lady, and I get her on the phone. I leave her a message. We play phone tag for a minute. I finally get her on the phone. And on the other end of this line is this little Irish brogue, and I was like, I think you're my mother, the way I did it, she's a professional, she's a physician, and I was like, oh, the Search Angel lady's like, well, you should tell her, it was about a childbirth, November 13th, 1982, so she kind of knew what she was walking into, but not really. And I called her and I told her, and what I was able to do was say, I'm not resentful at you at all. Like, I hated this lady growing up. I didn't know her. I didn't know anything about her, but I knew that somebody just gave me to this family that I hate, and which I love absolutely to death now, but I didn't know any of that. And I was able to say, listen, thank you so much, right? Like, thank you for what you did. I don't know how you did it. Thank you. I was like, you have 2 grandkids, and I was suffering from this delusion. This was like 4 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I thought that we were going to be like doing Christmas together and stuff. And like, it was going to be like this Hallmark, hell of a story. And it's not that, but you know what it is? I have this relationship where I talk to this lady that, once a month we talk, every few weeks. But what it was, she had been carrying that secret around for 39 years. And she had not told, her entire family is in Ireland. She has nobody here. No brothers, sisters, everybody's in Ireland. Nobody knew she was pregnant. Nobody knew she carried a baby. Nobody knew she gave a baby away. And this was eating her up. And she was able to get free of that by she's clearly not alcoholic. She was like, I got a therapist, She told me, I was like, you gotta get crack and, drink whiskey. Like, what are you doing? Therapist. But she did that. She got this therapist and she dealt with it, and we talk, frequently, but it freed her up. It was able to free her up. Now, I know that's a very weird jail. There's a lot of moving parts there. It's a very convoluted story. I know if you're brand new, that might not be your story, and it's a very strange one. I can clearly admit that, but at its very essence, the only thing I did was show up here and do what you guys showed me how to do. I took these steps when they seemed so unrelated to what I was suffering from at the time. They seemed so dumb, and so I couldn't connect the dots with what you guys were telling me to do and this life that I have today. And, if you're new, I pray that you come here and do what we do, because, I thank you so much for my life. Thank you.